great man shows his greatness by the way he treats little men. If your intention is to communicate effectively with another person, it is necessary for you to have respect for that person. Do you remember not long ago there was a briefing in the Rose Garden with President Obama, and one of the reporters actually stood up, I don't know if he stood up or not, but he interrupted the president right in the middle of a question or right in the middle of him talking? That's a sign of lack of respect, not only for the office of the presidency, but also for the individual who at this time happened to be President Barack Obama. It's rampant in our society with television, with the media. Lack of respect is pretty rampant. When you think about TMZ and the way they invade people's space and the paparazzi and all this, we're seeing role models of the people that most little people, and that would be you and me, look up to, not being respected. So why is that, and what is respect? The dictionary definition of respect relates to admiration, having regard for another, and practicing various elements of etiquette. But then if you talk to Aretha Franklin or Otis Redding, R-E-S-T-P, right? It's a little bit different, right? So respect is a very, very interesting thing, and what we talk about in the chapter is why people don't get respect or earn respect or have respect. Do you believe that respect is a God-given right, or is it something that needs to be earned? There's a very interesting discussion in the chapter about going back to the Constitution and Aristotle, and it talks about the virtue of respect not being necessarily dependent upon earning it. I tell a story about a fellow by the name of Pablo Rivera. And Pablo Rivera was from down south, Mexico. He came up here to work, and I was referred to him by a neighbor. He and I worked in my yard for probably a few years, sometimes during the week and often on the weekends, and we would work side by side. I would pick and he would shovel, he would pick and I would shovel. We dug a jacuzzi, we dug a spa, we built walls, we did all kinds of things. I don't speak Spanish. A couple of words, tortilla, margarita, but that's about it, right? Cerveza. And Pablo spoke no English. But after we would work and sweat for hours in the yard, I would invite him to sit on our patio, and I would go in the house and get him a cerveza. And we would have a conversation. And a lot of it was with sign language. A lot of it was half words. A lot of it was because I know Spanish is basically just putting an O on the end of a word. You o, go o, hero, right? And we had a marvelous time. We had a marvelous time. When it came time that Pablo had to go, I ended up, my family and I went to his christening of his grandchild. He invited us over to the house, and what do they call that brown stuff? Molea. He made molea, his own special recipe for mole, right? Mole. For mole, it was really good. When he got ready to leave, I remember I was in the garage, and he came up to me, and I knew something was cooking. He was about this tall, and he always wore a great big white cowboy hat. And he came up to me, and not saying anything, because he doesn't speak English, right? But he just comes up to me, he comes really close, which is not the culture. And all of a sudden, his arms go around me, and he's shaking. And he says, adios. Adios, padrón. Adios. And yet we never had a lengthy, serious conversation other than those conversations on the patio, which were mostly sign language. But I believe that is an indication of the fact that he and I respected each other as individuals. Another thing that we talk about in this chapter when it comes to respect is how respect ties to power. Power is a fascinating thing. We all have power. You have power, I have power. The waiter has power because he's bringing us our food. And there are at least seven different types of power. So we talk in the chapter a little bit about positional power, that's your title. Then we talk about organizational power and personal power. And for the sake of our discussion, I'd like to just focus on one type of power, not coercive power, not reward power, not connection power, not information power, not expert power, but rather I'd like to focus on what's called referent power. And referent power, R-E-F-E-R-E-N-T, referent power is something that is viewed upon you because people respect you so much based upon your behavior, your attitude, and what they see you do and say and are. It's not because you know about computers. It's because you are a particular quality person. That is what's called referent power. What's interesting about personal power is you totally control how much personal power you have. And then like money, power and money can be used for good or they can be used for evil. And so if we all have power and we can use for good or for evil, how do we then combine that with showing respect for other people? Now there's a lot more in the chapter, and I just wanted to give you a couple of ideas to talk about at breakfast and think about. Effective communication requires more than talent. It involves trust, respect, understanding, empathy, and resolution. It is an art. Enjoy your breakfast.